Christopher Buckley, of all your books, which is your favorite?
Well, that's a tricky question. My stock answer to that is the next one. Um, I write mostly comic novels. I've written maybe 7 or 8 of those. This book, Losing Mum and Pup, is a memoir, probably the only memoir I will ever write because I don't have all that much to say. But at the risk, maybe I'm going out on thin ice, but I don't think I'll ever write a better book than this one. But it's in part because it's so singular in nature, and in part because it's about 2 extraordinary people who provided me with some pretty amazing material for a book.
What was it like to write this book?
I sat down one day, it was shortly after I had buried my father last year, I woke up in the morning with no intention of writing a book and started writing a book and wrote it in 40 days. That was accidental. There's no biblical allusion intended there, but when I looked at the calendar after I'd finished it, I saw that 40 days had elapsed. It kind of, I work hard at my writing. I rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. This one kind of wrote itself. I mean, I did a lot of rewriting after, but it pretty much poured out.
Were you surprised at what poured out?
Yes. I think the first sentence of the book reads something like, "I'm not sure how this book is going to turn out." And I was indeed surprised at how the book turned out, you might say.
And that's exactly what it says.
Is that what it says? The height of vanity, quoting oneself. It's a story. It's a story of the year of losing my parents, who were really quite incredible people. And there are a lot of flashbacks in it about growing up with them. I asked myself, when I got to the end of the book, I sort of asked myself, okay, why did you write this book? And it was, the typical reason would be catharsis. I had to, get it out, whatever. Catharsis is an out-of-town word, as my dad would have said. I think, honestly, I wrote it as a way of spending some more time with them before putting them finally to rest, to the extent one ever does put one's parents to rest.
So
it was a way of spending some time with them when they were in their prime. There's some passages in the book that remember them when they were, just at their best. And there are some passages in there which I described them when they were at their most impossible. But they were, my dad was a great man, and there's no reason to expect great people to be uncomplicated. My mother was a grande dame, and there's certainly no reason to expect them to be like Harriet, as in Ozzie and Harriet. She wasn't.
Well, did you surprise yourself when you went to her deathbed and said, "I forgive you"?
I had a feeling you were going to bring that up. I literally raced through a storm to get to her deathbed. I had been giving a speech at Washington and Lee University. It was April 14th, which has always been a day I've remembered. The Titanic sank hit the iceberg on August 14th, and President Lincoln was shot and died the next day. Anyway, I raced from Robert E. Lee's house, actually, oddly, to my mother's deathbed, and she was at that point in a coma, so she was beyond. All I could do was sort of hold her hand, and after giving the order to take the respirator out, and I found myself saying, "I forgive you." And these words surprised me, coming out of me. But they needed to be said. She had been a wonderful woman that she was, but she could be naughty, and and impossible. And she was too proud ever to have asked for that. She never said, "I'm sorry for being so impossible at dinner last night." And it just, I didn't want her to go off. My wife has a rule, don't go to bed angry. And it's a good rule. Here my mother was, as it were, going to bed, and I didn't want there to be anything unresolved between us. I certainly hope at my deathbed people will forgive me. You know, I mean, it sounded presumptuous to me at the time to say this to her, but in the larger scheme of things, I think I'm glad I did.
What's your last memory of your father?
You mean when he was alive? Well, he was failing. And we were at lunch, and he, you know, just couldn't sort of stay up, and he just kept nodding forward into his soup, and you know, closing his. He had emphysema and diabetes, and I just, you know, I so wanted his pain to be over. So that was my last living memory of him. I opened up when he came home. I brought him home for one last night in the coffin for a wake. I'm Irish, and I kind of, you know, need the body. We opened up the coffin, and there was my last glimpse of him. And I wanted to put some things in the coffin. I put, I put a jar of peanut butter, because he was crazy about peanut butter, a rosary, the TV remote control, because I knew he'd want that, since he always had a death grip on it. And I laid my mother's ashes in a Chinese lacquer box on his lap, and closed the lid. And I said in my eulogy that I don't think any pharaoh in ancient Egypt went off into the afterlife better equipped than my old man with his jar of peanut butter and his remote control.
Well, Christopher Buckley, we've already gotten several emails asking about
this.
the importance of the Catholic faith to your parents, or to your father, I should say, and what it meant to you.
Well, my father was an absolutely devout Catholic. He raised me Catholic. I am post-Catholic, or a collapsed Catholic. I am respectful of the Catholic faith. I went to a boarding school in Rhode Island called Portsmouth Abbey, where I got a wonderful education from some amazing monks. Father Damien, Father Julian, if you're watching, God bless. Keep praying for me. I need it. But I, you know, somewhere along the line, came to, you know, as many of us do, drew my own conclusions. This became difficult for my father, because he was a guy who really never, ever doubted his Catholic faith. And that impressed me, because he had tragedies in his life. He lost a beloved sister, my Aunt Maureen, in 1964. He was devoted to her. His sister, Aloise. He lost many people dear to him who died very prematurely. And, you know, these are experiences that I suppose either reinforce or challenge our religious faith. His father, William Frank Buckley Sr., was the son of a Texas sheriff. Our ancestors left Ireland in about the 1840s because the original Buckley, John Buckley, was a Protestant who married a Catholic girl, and they had to leave, and went to Ontario, where the eventual sheriff was born, but he had asthma, so they moved down to Texas. So William, my great-grandfather, John Buckley, the sheriff of Duval County, was the first Catholic. His best friend was Pat Garrett, who shot Billy the Kid.